Have you ever wanted to get more out of your enterprise? This episode we'll be covering that in with Sally Martin from Sheep Metrics. But before we do, I'd like to let you know Alara White Dorpers, sponsor of this podcast, has their ram sale coming up. And when I say their ram sale, it's actually our ram sale. This is the backgrounding, the supporter, the sponsor of the Farms Vice podcast as well. So it makes everything tick here, as well as the time that I devote to both. It works really well with each other, flexible. If you're looking for some quality shedding rams, head on over to our place, or you can go on Auctions Plus. But let's get back to this episode. We'll be talking about getting your ewe lambs into lamb and how you can get the most out of your enterprise, and interesting results coming up just around the corner. Let's get into this episode with Sal. Beautiful. Well, Sally, how are you going? Welcome to the Farms Vice podcast. You've been on here before, but you haven't in 2024, so welcome.
Thank you very much.
How's everything going with you currently?
Yeah, we're going well. Busy. I'm actually at the moment doing a lot of mate cell runs for different clients. Mapping ewe and ram breeding programs, which is pretty cool. It's pretty amazing that we can actually predict the outcome of the joining before the rams actually meet with the ewes, and we're getting pretty accurate results, even in small syndicate joinings as well, which is kind of off topic for today, but keeping me pretty busy.
But definitely a topic. In what scenario is that used, or where are you leaning towards? To breed rams, breed ewes?
Yeah. So all ram breeding operations, but I'm also doing it with larger commercial breeders who breed their own rams, and we've got full pedigree. So to utilise mate cell, we need full pedigree and predominantly you have to be putting your data into sheep genetics as well. So it's based on breeding values, but we can then tweak it in terms of if, for example, you've classed up your ewes and they're say even in your situation, you've got ewes that are full shedding and others that aren't quite there yet or something, and you might go, well, we don't want certain rams to go over these ewes, but this is a suite of rams who potentially could improve that, in terms of the progeny. So you can manipulate it a little bit to be able to make sure that you get the right rams going with the right ewes in terms of their phenotype and visual traits and stuff like that we can't see through breeding values.
So that's going into the genomics of it.
It does use some genomics, but predominantly sheep just have to have full pedigree and have breeding values.
Okay, so very interesting stuff. Because you've been so busy, is now a pretty busy time for yourself, or do you have a bit of a downtime throughout the year? How's it sort of spanning out within the sheep game for you?
Yeah, it used to be quieter over that kind of Christmas period, but because we've got clients who actually start joining in November through to the end of March, that's all busy with joining programs, and then we get into to start, lambing and DNA testing, and so we actually don't have that much of a quiet time, but there's a little bit of time over January, which has been good.
Yeah, I saw quite a similar trend. I always thought we had a longer time off, maybe because I was at school or something, but it didn't seem too much time off. Checking the sheep and making sure everything's ticking over. But let's talk about what you've got coming up. You've got a field day down south, I believe, Junee.
Yeah, near Junee. So we've got this new project, optimising ewe lamb joining outcomes. It's MLA, Producer Demonstration Project, that we started off last year. And we've got 4 groups that are part of that project. And as we're going to have an annual field day every year. And, we've got a field day coming up on the 21st of February down at near Urungilly.
So for this project, what sort of kicked it off, and why, what questions were asked for this project to start, or even as producers, why are we going this way?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's also where a lot of these producer demonstration type projects start. It's questions from producers wanting to answer them or to try new things and have a project structure around it, so we can collect decent information to actually compare different management practices, as an example. So this one started. We had a number of clients talking to us about. And also Laura Broughton was involved in setting up the project as well. She's based in Cootamundra. We had a number of people, talk to us about, joining new lambs and was it successful, and, do you do it all the time or is it opportunistic? And so we put this project together to more, so the outcome of the project is to have like a framework that people can use to decide whether they're going to join new lambs. And then also there's a number of targets that are already out there in the industry. It's just probably putting all of that together into one kind of location is the ultimate outcome. But in the meantime, it's talking to producers. As I said, we've got 4 groups as part of the project. One group's based around Wellington. The other one is around Junee Wagga. There's one at Young and Harden here, and then another one that we've based around West Wyalong. So reasonably different geographic areas and also sheep types. We do have a number of merino breeders, but there's also a number of shedders and composite breeders that are also involved.
What sort of variables come within it as well? Because where the sheep grow up as well, the nutrients seem to change pasture to whatever sort of fodder they're chasing as well. What have you sort of included into the boundaries, trying to measure everything like appropriately, or what aren't you measuring?
Yes, it's a good question. And so basically we're looking at a lot of body weights of the ewes at different times. So, for example, starting at weaning time, we'll have a weaning weight, and we'll do another one at 200 days. So we start looking at some growth rates, and we're looking at setting some targets and that could be different for the different kind of sheep types as well. So your joining targets might be different, and then looking at how many ewes that you're going to actually that meet those targets and then meet the ram, and are they? We look at pastures in terms of how many kilos per hectare are still in front of them. Are they going to be putting on weight? And during that joining period, for example, the time of year, it's another one, because day length is probably more predominant with younger stock, and then following those ewes through over the duration of the repro cycle, and then we're actually any of the ewes that don't get in lamb, I guess we're considering the control, comparing those, and we're actually in any of the wool, so the merinos will be measuring their fleece weights as well, and the impact that the lambing has on them. Because we don't have full parentage, it's a lot of probably averages for the mob that we're going to be looking at and comparing. And I guess the other thing, because of the duration of the project, so we go through to December 26, is to be able to actually follow some of those ewe lambs as adults. So as a 2-year-old joining, and what effect is this having on their reproduction and other traits as well.
It's actually something like on our own farm that I wanted to do, just from a lamb and follow them right through to their first lamb as well, and see what the sort of different traits are, or what's working, what's not working, just out of curiosity as well.
Yeah. I guess another thing too. Oh, sorry. Just while I think of it, is looking at your ram. So we're also looking at the breeding values of the ram teams that people are using, and if people are interested in joining ewe lambs, post weaning weight is a really important trait to be focusing on and improving with your ram team as well, because it's all those lambs that grow quickly early and meet get to maturity and join up with the ram. So that's another kind of facet that is intertwined in all this as well.
Will the cohort, the 4 farms, 4 producers, they're doing single joining each year? Are you aiming the project to do single joining so you can ease of measurement and make sure those ewes will hopefully 100% are going in?
No, it's actually they're all slightly different, which is probably a good thing. So some are joining predominantly use all that make the target. We've got another one who's just putting the ram out with all of them, and kind of varying in between. So the idea, I guess, did you mean that are they putting out a single ram or?
No, if they're joining twice a year or twice in 18 months, that would have.
Yeah, it's a good question, but we don't have anyone. Do you want to put your hand up?
Maybe we'll have to see how it goes. I think that sort of perspective, it can't be done everywhere, I suppose. And for us, seasonality-wise, you've got grass and the energy in there for the ewes to carry them through. All about having the milk. It sounds like the project is a bit of a feedlot scenario without being in the feedlot. And do you have ewe lambs that are like the tailings, and then are you going to keep those for a month to get up to the 45 or that target weight, and then get them into the project as well? Is that how it will work?
No, we're actually setting a date, I think, in terms of this is the date we're going to join the ewe lambs, because if we have in the producers that are in the project, if they have too long a prolonged lambing, it interferes with so many other facets in animal husbandry and whatever else might be going on farm. So what we're trying to do is look at the calendar of operations and actually fit it in so that when the ewe lambs finish lambing, it's not kind of impeding it on other activities. And I think that's pretty important in that people realising that kind of flow-on effect for certain, management decisions, whether you join for 5 weeks or 6 weeks or you leave the rams in for longer, and the ramifications that can have, if you can have nice tight joinings, that makes your jobs that you've got to do a lot easier and more concise. And so, taking into consideration all of those things and there's not one recipe is the same for everybody. So it's about fitting in with your seasonal conditions and also maybe it could be, in around your labour opportunities, how many people you might have on farm at any particular time. And, it used to be like when we were growing up at home, when our school holidays were.
It's the same. Pretty much every producer, especially in the Western districts or like Southern Queensland to Northern Victoria, are all sort of putting their harvest periods, their landmarking periods to when all the kids are home from school. We always thought it was that busy the whole time as farm kids. But for this, we're looking at like a 4-week, 6-week joining. What and how will this sort of change things up?
Yeah, we have one producer who is only joining for 3 weeks for one cycle, and then the others are joining for 5 or 6 weeks. So so learnings from so far from this last joining is we're looking at using teasers so that you bring 2 weeks prior to when the rams will go out. And just looking and monitoring body weight and making sure that they're continually on that rising plane during that joining period. I think that's probably a key, and we have some of the producers that are just like, we're just doing it every year. We're just gearing our mindset up to do this every year, and whereas others are going, well, actually, we're just going to watch the season, and that's more opportunistic. So, again, it really depends on, people's appetite for, doing it and if they need to. I guess that's probably a key message that I've got out of talking to a lot of the growers that are involved.
Absolutely. Do you want to just expand on teaser rams for people that may not understand and how it sort of all works? Are they pulled in or pulled out before the rams get in there?
Yeah, definitely. So you can either inject wethers with testosterone product that you have to get from the vet, and that's done a number of weeks prior to get them ready to go in, or you can vasectomise rams, and you need to be talking to your vet about how you prepare them. But the aim is that you put your teasers in 2 weeks before you're going to put your rams in, and you pull your teasers out before you put, at the same time when you put your rams in. So don't leave your teasers in, because what they'll actually do is they'll try and push the rams away as well. So there's more competition. So you need to pull the teasers, whether they're vasectomised rams or wethers out. And look, what it does, it's that ram effect, and it's helping them get all the ewes cycling. So when you do put the rams in, then they start working from day one. You're not kind of waiting for an extra period of time before the ewes start cycling naturally.
Yeah. And probably the ram health joining preparation, looking at the rams specifically before they go out into the paddock.
Absolutely.
What do you think there, and what's the must-dos?
Yeah, definitely. And checking your rams, making sure that they're healthy, and doing anything to them a couple of months prior. If you've got to shear them, or making sure that they don't have too much wool on them, needs to be done at least 6 weeks at a minimum before you start joining. Because if you upset them, then it's that 6 week period for semen to recover, and for the rams to be able to be used. And look, annually checking them is a good thing. There's a lot of brucellosis around, and some people are talking about having issues, with poor lambing percentages and stuff like that. So we need to it's a really good way to eliminate that as the issue, and then you can start working on other things that might be, creating the problems.
Are we looking at selection of rams? Like, these are probably existing rams on the project sites as well, but is the project included in better selecting the rams for the younger ewes as well? And does that ram need to be under 100 kilos if the younger ewes are a bit lighter than normal?
Yeah, the project, we're using existing rams on farm, and I guess what a lot of people are doing is looking at joining their older ewes, and then pulling out the rams maybe for a week, and then putting them in with the ewe lambs, or having some crossover there potentially. So you're trying to get the best utilisation of the genetics that you have. In terms of which rams go with the ewe lambs, we actually haven't really looked at the weight of the rams, but it's a really good point that we might have a look at.
Well, if it's a huge ram, 120, 30 kilos, which they easily can be in a good season, those poor girls might go a-running.
Yeah, that's very cool.
What sort of expectations or what hypothesis have you come up with? What do you want to achieve from this project? Like, as yourself, Sal, as a consultant for the growth of the industry, the sheep industry, what do you want from it?
Yeah, look, and there's a number of different projects that have been around looking at ewe lamb joining as well. I know, talking to Mark Ferguson, Next Gen Agri, they've with Murdoch Uni and MLA, they've put together a decision support tool that we're actually using within the project, looking at joining ewe lambs and the financial benefits around that, and helping to have a management and strategic kind of input into that. So we're actually using that tool, and it's a really nice way to be able to ground truth it, and I know that they've probably already done that, but working with people and how we can get the best benefit out of that. Probably the main thing, from my perspective, is just helping people kind of navigate, do they need to do this? Is this something that we could actually be improving our maiden ewe joining instead of worrying about joining ewe lambs? So is there other low-hanging fruit that we could probably improve before going into this area? And then if you do go into the ewe lamb joining, maximising your outcomes. So we don't want to have lots of little weedy lambs, that are out of season, that is just going to be a headache and not make any more money for us and go to all this trouble. So, just making some of those, helping people make some of those decisions.
The economics of it, and probably goes into creating the lifetime value of that ewe as well to increase that across the board. Because generally, are producers keeping them to 5 years from then onwards?
Yeah, good question. So it'll be interesting to see. We might probably get there with the project in terms of what their longevity might be, and a lot of people are definitely gearing up with grazing crops and fodder crops to be able to actually cope with this. So getting lambs off at weaning or early weaning onto feed and really pushing them so that they're growing and they're meeting all of those weight targets. And I think if some things are missed, then the opportunities and the conception rates with joining with ewe lambs and even maidens, definitely drops off very quickly.
Just thinking about what you said then, there's probably a few prerequisites like that early weaning that would put them in the best opportunity as well, sort of whatever the season is. If it's a bit drier, people say to wean them off early to give the mum a break and the lamb can grow out on its own. That's a pretty good prerequisite, do you think, for this program?
Yeah, definitely one of them. And we're monitoring them and making sure that they are putting on weight. So making sure that your animal health, like your worm, because younger stock are always more susceptible, so making sure you're up to date with all your worm tests and your drenches and that you've got enough feed and energy and protein in front of them. That is, I think, just so important. And any other animal health kind of issues in terms of feet or stuff like that is also important too, if depending on what our spring or winter's like.
Yep, and this, it would obviously be past the producers classing in as well. So these are good ewes for their enterprise, what they're chasing as well, not just everything.
Yeah, it's another really interesting point. So that's actually something a lot of people struggle with joining ewe lambs because they haven't classed them yet.
Yeah.
So they mightn't have physically classed them, and so just being able to work a way around and think of, right, well, anything that's eventually classed before they lamb goes into the, you call it a terminal mob, and none of their progeny are allowed to have even an opportunity to get back in. So you can do it in a number of ways, but that is a mindset that a few people have commented that they struggle with putting the ram out with potential culls.
Yeah, little weedy ones. It's probably the most satisfying job on a sheep farm, I think, classing them out and seeing what the next sort of pedigree is coming through, I reckon.
Yeah. And look, I guess what we're doing now is, with people that are joining ewe lambs, it's another layer. But I think one aspect in that is that, and with all the EID tags, not that we need them to be able to do this, but if you're putting a numbered tag in lambs at lamb marking time and you're lambing down in singles and twins, you can allocate to know whether that ewe was born a single or a twin, and then when you come to classing, you're not pulling out the smaller ones or overlooking some of those late twins, or because their genetic potential's still there, they're just six weeks behind or whatever it might be. So, I think there's a heap of things that cross over with so many stuff on farm that we can tap into to make sure that those decisions are, as good as they can be.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it? Someone that doesn't really know sheep or something, they'd say that's a cheap little lamb there, but he's a twin, and then in 2 months he'll be just up with the rest of the crowd, if not overtaken. And all that's the marketability, right, of having the twins as well, if you're in the genetic game. Something I just thought of was, what happens past a ewe lamb project? Like, are you preg scanning? Are you going to control into single, twins, or triplets, that sort of environment, or is that the project just to get them in lamb?
No, we're definitely following them through. So we're capturing, particularly on the 4 farms that are part, like kind of our demonstration or host farms. Other members of the groups are doing it as well if they want. But so weaning weights, and then a post weaning at 200 days or a bit before, and we do a weight when the rams go out. So when the rams go out, potentially at preg scanning, we've got one guy who's weighing at preg scanning time as well, and then we will wet and dry at lamb marking. Again at weaning, just depending on the program, and follow those ewes through for subsequent lambings as well. Picking up on a bit of pasture and what's happening on farm in terms of the paddocks that they're being in and how much feed, or if they're being supplementary fed, what type of feed have they been getting and that type of stuff, and effectively monitoring. We're going to monitor the ewes that were joined as ewe lambs last year until the end of the project. So all of our producers have got electronic tags, so we can actually, track individual animals within those mobs as well.
So for the day, bringing it back into what you're doing, what can those attending, what can they sort of expect of what's going to happen throughout the day?
Yeah, so we'll have a brief overview of the project and we're going to present some of the data that we've collected to date on those 4 properties. Yep. And we will be going through that decision support tool that I mentioned. So, yep. And we've also going to have one of the LLS, Local Land Services vet, to come and talk about ram health and any issues around that as well. And then our host, Barrick Parker, who's the property that it's on, he's going to talk about his program and what he's been doing. So we will also have, we'll have the ewe lambs that were joined last year as ewe lambs. We'll have their progeny, and we'll have the 23 drop. So 23 drop lambs that are just going to be joined as ewe lambs. Lots of ewe lambs.
So the blue tag are ewes in the project.
So these are all the ewes that are in the project, yeah. So we're going to have them all yarded on display so people can have a look through them, and then we've got facilities to be able to run them around so people can have a closer look and, see where things are at. So, yeah, Barrick's got a really interesting way that he's feeding them according to what their weaning weights were, and he's gearing up to be able to join all his ewe lambs.
Yeah, okay, so he's probably looking after the tail a bit as well to get them along.
Yep.
Now. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, he's going well. And, yeah, so basically, quite informative, and we'll have the hosts of the other sites there to have a bit of a chat to everyone about their experiences. And, I think it's a really good way for people to, some things work in some areas, and it really depends on your infrastructure and how you get up and all those things. But there might only be a few little tweaks that you've got to do to be able to do it well. So
these projects, you need to know whether or not you can or can't do it as well, depending on your region and whatnot. What's the top KPIs, like the indicators for yourself? Is it obviously being a success or not successful? Lamb percentage, ewe health?
Look, I think definitely lamb survival. I think is a key thing. I think we're quite good at getting ewes in lamb. Survival, I think, is really our key aspect at the moment, and whether that's being, in terms of how fit the ewes are, and what's what's in front of them. Energy and protein is so important. Being able to make sure you've got that, and if you can't, well, you need to supplement. So and just being able to do that well. Look, it's not easy by any means. I've grown up in a lot of droughts and on the Monero, so I know what that's like. So having being prepared and knowing some of your triggers, and being the timing of when you can come in and do things, and that's often hidden by wool growth if we're not putting our hands on the sheep.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in there, very time sensitive as well. If you don't hit this season, you got to wait till the next, otherwise it's too hot, too cold for lambing. What have we missed from this project that you want to share today?
Look, I think we've probably covered most of it. I guess the other thing, and you did mention it earlier, was the cost and is it profitable. So we will look at the cost benefit across the project for doing it. And in terms of, one of the outcomes, if people feel that it's just not for them, that's a really good decision too. So they can still concentrate and focus on other things. So you don't have to do it. It's not, but the principles and the tools, we've heard them with Lifetime Ewe and many other things, and improving maiden ewe joining outcomes. If anything's learnt and then transferred into getting better outcomes with your maidens, that's a great outcome too. So it doesn't all have to be around ewe joint like the lambs, but, the principles and just fine-tuning and getting some of that other stuff right, I think, that's a great outcome.
I think it's a lot about, like I see within Australian agriculture and the sheep industry, improving our capacity, whether or not producers are running at 70%, when they can run at 100% with the same labour units, doing the same amount of work, because we still got to get that paddock in, but that paddock is only doing 110% lambing or 86% feeder survival, that sort of stuff. But the few tweaks that you're talking about, how easily or maybe not easy that is to get around, but we just need to know the answer to it. Is it a yes or a no for our enterprise?
And often it might be changing a couple of things over time, and seeing those benefits rather than trying to change everything all at once. So, those incremental changes and looking at your production in terms of kilos per hectare, whether that be wool or meat or number of lambs per hectare, that you're getting off. I think they're good metrics in terms of being able to identify how you're improving. So it might be, we've had a couple of clients and their stocking rates were quite high and they actually pulled off the stocking rates. So and they're still generating similar amount of kilos and of wool and meat per hectare, but their variable costs are slightly less because they've got less sheep to drench. So it can work in a number of ways in that are you allowing your sheep to express their true genetic potential? You can have really good genetics and poor management and still be okay, and vice versa. So it's about having decent genetics, good genetics, and actually managing them well to get the best out of the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question. I keep coming up with questions as I keep thinking to nerd out on sheep. Is it going to be multi-sire rams within that? And are you able to measure if their ones performed better for the ewe lambs than not?
So as in a syndicate, like joining multiple rams in with the ewes, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Of the same breed or different breeds?
No, of the same, like within the same farm, within the 500 ewes per se for the project.
Yep.
10 rams joined to those ewes. Are they going to be sort of measured with their attributes, or is it just purely looking at how the ewe lambs perform?
It's actually just looking at how the ewe lambs are performing. However, we do have one property that is a stud that's doing it, that we're DNA testing, so we can get full pedigree there. But it's that's the at Bellana, so that's the only property that we can actually do that. The rest are just commercial properties that we wouldn't be able to identify sire unless we did the DNA testing. So they're all joined as syndicates. So groups of rams going out with the ewes.
Yeah, just as expected in all commercial scenarios anyway, and probably what you want to test, the most common, what's going on. For yourself though, any more on that project?
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I think, thanks for the opportunity. It's great. And I guess if anyone's interested to come along, we've got some information on our website. You can book in. There's no cost because it's part of a producer demonstration project, but it'd be great if you could book in so then we can make you some scones.
Beautiful. Hopefully I'm delivering rams down there and I can swing in on the day.
Sounds good.
I'll put your link, Sheep Metrics, into the show notes, so anyone listening can check it out if you can make it down. 21st June timing?
From 9 o'clock to 1.
9 to 1. Yeah, beautiful. Right, I'll put that information in there. Just to touch on before you go, Sal, EID, how are we ramping up for EID and anything that you have top of mind to speak about?
I guess the 1st of January 25, we're going to be impacted here in New South Wales and most other states, I think, across Australia, in terms of the mandatory side of it. And look, we're running a few EID workshops. Actually, I'm heading out to Nyngan, Dunedoo and Parks next week to run some sessions out there. We've got a little bit of funding through AgriFutures and the Central West LLS are helping us with those three. I guess we predominantly work with people who are already using electronic tags to capture some type of information. Anyone who doesn't want to do that, really you've only got to put a tag in to be compliant. You don't have to buy all the gear if you don't want to, but if you want to get a return on your investment with the tags, then capturing some information, as long as you're going to use it, is really where you need to go. And, just like we've been talking now, body weights and preg scanning and, wet and drying, that type of stuff, which you pretty well do, most people are doing anyway. If you can know that on individual animals, it gives you an opportunity and when things are a bit tough and you've got to get rid of some sheep, instead of taking off a whole age group, you might just take off that low-hanging fruit across age groups. Having the power of that information gives that opportunity and flexibility to you. And then if you want to take it to another level, I guess I could talk on it all day, which I will be next week. So if anyone wants to come along, I'll have some info on our website as well.
The flocks of 2025 onwards, they may be much more improved as well.
Yeah, look, I guess there's opportunities there. But, in terms of being mandatory with the EID, you've just got to put a tag in, an electronic tag. The system's not changing significantly. It is in terms of, people having to scan, but it's the receiver who's responsible. So if you're selling through an agent or to sale yards or direct to a processor, it's their responsibility to scan them as well and upload that information to the NLIS, so the national, the livestock database. So, look, there's some people don't want to do it, and that's understandable. But I just guess a decision has been made, and that's the implementation of it. Yeah.
Well, I think we might pull it up there, Sal. So for the ewe lamb, what would be one piece of farm's advice that you'd like to pass on about that project?
Joining ewe lambs, I think have clear targets. So have clear targets and thresholds, and if you don't meet them, have your backup plan in terms of, well, I'm not going to put them out this year, or that mindset that, yes, I'm going to be doing it every year. So you're really pushing your ewes to actually meet those weight targets, and they've got to be continually putting on weight.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Sal, thank you so much for coming on to Farms Advice podcast again. Very welcome, and also for doing what you do within the sheep industry. It's good.
No worries. You keep up the great work too. I love hearing yours.
How'd you go listening to that one, farmers? Farming, as you know, is all about trial and error. And of course, trying to find the results that we need. We need that yes or we need that no. And I thought this was really good for the sheep producers out there. And also, this is just a template that you can whack into your own scenario, whether you're producing cattle, I don't know about cropping, but it's the mindset that we want to take across into these applications. Apply yourself, implement these ideas. Don't let them sit there hanging. I hope that you could get a piece of pen and paper to see what's going on, and maybe even get across to this event in June and the ones coming up this week with Sheep Metrics, Sally Martin and the team there. Make sure you subscribe to the Farms Advice podcast. Follow us on social media. Keep up to everything social. What's happening with the farmers? It's a late one here, so I'm whispering away. People are sleeping. But yeah, till next Tuesday, keep on farming.